Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not So Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season finale of DC's Legends of Tomorrow. A great season finale. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. So we're immediately picking up after the previous episode. I was so scared for Mick, but then he gets up and pats it off. It's like, that was nothing. I was like, right, we are talking about Mick Rory here. The man's all been about fire. A lot of his body's scarred and burnt, so it's like fire kind of does nothing too. So it should have been, I shouldn't have worried too much, but I was scared. I was like, no, Mick. But it's like, oh no, you're perfectly fine. Okay, cool, never mind. And then lo and behold, Bayrod's back at the worst possible, at the possible time in the sense of like everything that's going wrong. He's like, I should have known something was up with John, but then obviously finding out about John being dead, the fountain being gone, that's the only thing that's been keeping all these like very, very bad aliens away from invading. So it's one thing upon each other, and now Spooner's in bad condition because the fountain's barely hanging on, and because of them being tied together, she's dying as well. So it's like, okay, so now with that happening, what are we gonna do? Like, all that's left was like a single mushroom, and Bayrod's kind of focusing on it, like, oh, there's got to be something here. So it turns out the main threat that's coming is the Zagarons, because two land. Luckily, the Legends were able to kill them, but not before one sent the signal out, and now Zagaron invasion is coming. So it's like, cool. It literally took all the heroes coming together to deal with the Dominators invading this planet. So it's like, all right, cool. So now it's up to the Legends to kind of fight this big battle that's coming. So while dealing with everything, you have Mick and Kayla. Kayla actually being surprised at how, like, because on her planet, the mothers are the ones that take care of the babies, not the fathers. But seeing how dedicated Mick is to it, it's like, right, shouldn't you be helping your friends? It's like, no, this is where I'm supposed to be. I wasn't there in my daughter's life for her growing up, but she welcomed me in her life. I'm not about to make that mistake again. I'm gonna be here for all 48 babies' lives. Like, they're mine, and I'm gonna be there for them. And Kayla has this look in her eyes, like, wow, she was kind of impressed, like, because she'd already kind of given up on him, because like, it's like, right, you guys left me before, but now seeing how determined he is that he's willing to be there, it's like, oh, like, she felt something special with Mick anyway. It was also kind of the thing of like, we're about to die, so let's bang it out. But that both of those characters have had, like, they are very cold-hearted characters that both had their hearts, thawed out respectively. So, I mean, I think the same thing, Sarah even kind of makes comparison to the fact is that she's kind of similar in that same vein as well. So, you have Bayrod, who keeps examining the mushroom, saying that this mushroom is John, but Zari, who's pissed at John because he calls all this, isn't willing to listen. And then Bayrod's like, yeah, everyone, we got to eat a piece of this mushroom, but everyone's kind of like, no, let's not do that, because Sarah's like, we all need to be on, like, our biggest, like, our minds need to be focused for this, like, alien invasion, because the whole point of it is to, like, what would Sarah never do, because Bishop has anticipated everything that it would do, and his grand plan now, rather than saving the human race, it still applies. He wants the Zagarons to come to wipe out the human race, but the only people who will regenerate and survive and be immortal is him and Sarah. So he wants them to become the new Adam and Eve, which is like, oh, that's weird and disgusting that you want to do that, in the sense of like, yeah, let's wipe out all of humanity, so you and me, we can save humanity, we can give birth to a new humanity by, so he gets what he wants in the original, from his original plan of like getting humans in, trying to create the perfect species for humanity to like survive and stuff like that. So that is going to happen. He's just going to do it the old-fashioned way with Sarah, who has no interest in you because you are just the monster that you are. So to go against anything that he'd be able to predict, they have to do what Sarah would never do. So the golden idea is to go back in time, meet a younger Bishop to get him to reverse the poison they used so they could save the fountain. And seeing him, working on Ava Prime, him looking and sounding so dorky and everything, it's like, oh, I think in his mind he's like, oh, like he made himself cool or whatever as he got older. It's probably like, oh, that's me back in my dorky days or something. I always think it's so funny when they do that, where it's like, rather than get like a little bit, maybe a younger actor to like to portray like, oh, this is the younger Bishop. It's like, no, just get the actor just to play like a younger version of himself. It's just just him with like poofier hair. That's literally the only difference, and he's acting a little dorkier because his present day version is kind of like, ooh, I'm so cool, I'm so suave, I'm awesome, like full of himself, the ego and everything. Even him being like, wow, you guys must have come back in time, it must mean that I'm a big deal, that I'm the only one that you can turn to. It's like, wow, the ego on this guy. Yeah, I also felt bad for Ava Prime, who's like, oh my god, I'm alive, I'm dying, and then she just dies. I was like, oh, that's so sad. But yeah, they turn to him, and I love Nate saying that line of like, yep, there's no one that turns evil in this room. So they're working on that, but Bayrod's, like I said, came up with the idea of like eating the mushroom. Sarah, hearing John calling out to her, you know, kind of goes with the flow and is like, all right, and eats the mushroom, even though everyone's like, all right, fine, we won't eat the mushroom. And she ends up meeting John. At first I was like, wait, oh, does that mean John's there? We can bring him back? It's like, no, he's basically still fused with the fountain, but he's the only thing keeping it alive. As his soul is getting chipped away, keeping it alive, he's also keeping Spooner alive as well. So for him, it's like, right, you might have your plan to save the fountain, but that's going to be in a physical sense. On a more spiritual, magical sense, it's not going to help you, because of what I've done is deemed humanity not worth protecting, so it's going to leave you, it's going to throw you to the wolves, you know. And obviously Sarah's kind of sad that things have kind of come down to this for John, that he ends up in this state after everything, and he's like, I have no one to blame but myself, you know. He's like, I at the beginning told you that you and me, there was like no destiny of love, like neither one of us could ever find love, that it's just we weren't made for that, and I was wrong. We both found it. The difference is, for me, it wasn't enough. I threw away a really good thing just because I wanted more. And so that's my problem, and I'm the reason why I'm here. But he's like, let me tell you what I've kind of learned about the most important thing in life, you know? The answer to all life. And the moment Sarah comes back, there was like, dude, yeah, I ate the mushroom. John gave me them, like, he told me the answer to all life. We're all connected. And it's like, oh, very like Hitchhiker Guide to the Galaxy. What the whole thing, like the answer to all life is 42? Wasn't that it? I've not seen the movie. I've seen bits and pieces of the movie, and it's been years, but I believe that was the bit, right? So it was almost of that same nature, because even Nate's like, I think I saw a bumper sticker like that, because it's like, Sarah's like, wow, it did actually sound like a lot more impressive when he said it. So it's like, okay, what's the significance of that? Well, you slowly but surely kind of find out. But we do get the younger bishop having a cure for Spooner, and she's actually back and healthy, but all the alien stuff is going away. Her connection with the fountain is gone because it doesn't deem humans worthy, so she's not a conduit anymore. So they're kind of screwed on that front. But obviously the Zagrons start landing their pods, and it's only a matter of time because they're going to like bust free at night. So full-blown invasion at that point. So, you know, Sarah decides like, no, let's move up the wedding. Let's make it happen now. It's going to be the end of the world. An apocalypse is coming. And the fact of the matter is, if we only have these 4 hours, let's make it count. I'd rather us be married and be a couple in that time frame. So it's like, all right, let's throw out our plans, which, you know, Ava being who she is, of course that's going to stress her out a little bit, because she's always, let's plan everything out to a T. That was the whole point, you know. And so kind of being thrown to the wind. You have Spooner telling her mom she has to leave, because it's like, if she sticks around, it's like, I'm going to have to try and protect this planet and everything. Me and my friends fighting aliens, saving the day, this is what we do, but I can't do that if I'm constantly worrying about you. I went 20 years blaming aliens, saying like, they're the reason you were taken from me, and if you stay here, it's going to come true, and I won't be able to get to this point in time where I get to come back to you. So I need you to go, you know? And it's sad, you know, but it's like, right, she wants her mom to live. Like, she went through so much to make sure her mom lives. And I do love that, like, you know, who was there to kind of hold her was Astra. And I think it's very, you know, her new bestie, but also it's like, right, someone who can understand that pain of like losing a mom and being kind of separated. It's like finding her mom after all this time and being separated from her, because it's like, there's no guarantee any of us are going to make it out of this. We hope, but this might be the last time I get to see my mom again. But I'd rather know, like, even if I'm not, so that on some level for some short period of time, she'll at least be safe. So I thought that was dope. Kayla obviously wants to bail with the Zagrons on their way, but Mick is like, no, I'm not abandoning my kids, but I'm also not abandoning my friends or my family or this planet. I'm like, dude, look at you, Mick, so caring and stuff like that. I was like, that's awesome. Because she'd even suggested, like, right, I'm going to get off this plane. She's like, you could come along, too, if you want to. I was like, oh, look at her kind of being all bashful about that. But I thought that was pretty dope. What I thought was really sweet, well, for like a little montage as they're getting the wedding ready all across the board. But then we get to Gary and Ava, because Ava hadn't wrote her vows yet. And, you know... Because it's like, because even Gary's like, really? You haven't written your vows yet? Because it's like, it's you though. Like, you'd be all on top of that. But it's like, yeah, there's just been so many other things and many other factors. So, but Sarah's already got hers written and everything. And Gary's just saying, like, you'll look into those beautiful blue eyes and you'll find it. She's like, you're telling me to improv? It's like, yeah. Because he's like, knowing that it's like, there's love between them, that Ava will essentially find the perfect words to say. And it's such a beautiful, it's like, Gary's such a goofball, but when the time comes, when it comes to Ava, he knows what to say, you know. And she's like, will you walk me down the aisle? I was like, oh my God. Because, you know, if there could be anyone, it would be Rip. But obviously, long since gone. It would probably be super awkward getting young Bishop to be the one to walk you down the aisle, since he's technically your dad to a certain extent. That's a whole thing. But, Gary accepting it and calling her Director Sharp and everything. I'm like, dude, this is so beautiful. The same thing has come this circle. I'm not using that word right. But I love that Mick walked Sarah down the aisle. I was like, oh, that is beautiful. And them almost like halfway hugging, and then they're just kind of stopping and patting each other on the back, because it's like, yeah, that's not us. And then Gary walking Ava down the aisle. Kayla and Mick sitting beside each other, and you actually see like a smile. Like, you never like see him like joyful like that. It's so weird. It's just like everyone's just enjoying and embracing all of this, you know. Sarah's vows, and then Ava's vows. I even love Nate being like, oh, how they met with each other, you know. She had a gun, you had a glare, you know. And it's like, and here we are. Like, you never would have thought where we started at would be where we are right now. And it's like, yeah, how good Ava looks in a pantsuit and everything. And it's like, it's just awesome. That it is kind of crazy to think about how far their journey has come, of like their relationship, and just how much has happened since the beginning. So I love it. It's just kind of like this like celebratory moment, just kind of like, once again, just like the era of weddings, because, you know, Barry and Iris had like their renewal of their vows and everything. Once again, they got married under like super chaotic situations like the first time. But Bishop rolls up, and I love that he's like, oh, wow, they got the younger me. I actually didn't see that coming. I'm impressed. He's like, oh, this is also embarrassing. But the Zagrons, they released it, and it's like, all right, everyone, locked and loaded. Sarah's like, if you don't have regenerative abilities or can turn your skin to steel, like, fall back. Everyone locks and load, gets ready. But then it ends up becoming too much. It's like, all right, we got to run. We might need to think this running thing. And I love that they do. Like, everyone runs to the house, and it's very zombie apocalypse, like, oh, Night of the Living Dead type of, we gotta hold the line type of thing, which they kind of went through something like this last season, I want to say, like kind of like a zombie level situation. So it's interesting to see them kind of under these circumstances again. But, you know, Behrad ends up getting stung. It's like that venom's going to kill him. So, which I'm surprised, like, Zari was all about, like, no, it's like, you do have a ship that you could regenerate his arm, so, but I guess, like, she's only just getting back online, so not everything was up to snuff, so I guess it's like, there's no guarantee to be able to give my brother his arm back, plus, he'd most likely die from shock or something like that. But I was like, her wanting to kind of go full-blown Walking Dead and Hershaling this, in the sense of cutting off a limb so the infection doesn't spread, like, that makes a lot of sense, and I'm surprised Zari wasn't, I mean, but it makes sense. It's like, you're not about to mutilate my brother, but then, like, Spooner gave him Sarah's regenerative abilities, and then I love how that scene plays out, because it becomes superpower roulette, and it's just like, I was like, okay, Spooner, give Ava Nate's power, and she steals up her arm, and I'm like, dude, this is crazy. And like, Mick's flamethrower runs out. He's like, need powers, and like takes Zari's power and gives it to him. At one point, Sarah and Astra switch. I'm like, dude, they know. I'm assuming everything kind of just goes back to normal afterwards, because it seems like it's a temporary thing. It doesn't seem like, I think once the switch happens and you do your thing, like, I guess after a while you eventually, because some cases it didn't seem immediate, but in other cases it did seem like it eventually switched back. I guess like some of those switchbacks are off screen, but I was almost like, are we season 2 of Misfitting this? If you don't get the reference, like in the show Misfits, there was a whole thing about switching abilities, and a lot of characters had a lot of their powers switched around because of things in season 2, and it kind of played a role in season 3 and everything. It's a whole thing. So I was wondering if there was kind of a similar thing going to happen in this, where like not everyone got their abilities back. We'll see. It seems like it is a thing of like everyone walked away with their original abilities, but it's like it's crap with everything going on. Like, wait, Sarah and Ava didn't actually say I do. We need to like at least make this official before we all eat it. So Kayla's like, fine, I'm gonna handle things. You guys do your thing before I change mine. And everyone else huddles around in a circle. I'm like, oh, that's pretty dope. Everyone's gathering around him. Do you? I do. And they kiss. And then it channels that, like, them coming together as a family, as a team, that love as, because that was the whole point, was before, like, we're all connected, is what John was trying to say. And that led to Spooner being able to do what she does. But in this moment, very much like the Bebo situation at the end of season 3 of the Legends coming together in that regard, we have a similar thing, but the fountain channels energy through them. Their love conquers all, and it ends up releasing energy and killing all the Zagrons. So that worked out, the fountain's all about love, so that was pretty dope. So not only did they get hitched, and it's like, not only did you get hitched and you guys are parents, it's awesome. And then we had like, Bishop showing up though to kind of reign on the situation, because he's like, right, it's going to be you and me at the end if I have to kill every human. And the babies hatch, and they proceed to, he's like, oh, look at him. It's like, oh, they actually are kind of cute. And they proceed to devour Bishop. You're like, oh, I feel bad for the poor bastard. He's still a extremely, extremely bad guy, but he's still kind of like, that's the cute, probably the most disturbing and cutest death you'll ever probably see in this series. So that was interesting. Interesting timing. It kind of reminds me of those things, spoilers a little bit, minor spoiler for The Suicide Squad, those things that King Shark runs into, that is like, oh, he's like, oh, dumb friends, like those things. And it's like, oh, they're cute and everything until they get out of the tank and they start biting it. Because I talked about it in my review, I thought King Shark had died at that moment because there was so much blood, but he ended up being okay. Like, it kind of reminded me of that. And obviously Mick is like, hey there, boy or girl, and, it rubs up against him. He's like, I love you. And it's like, oh, that's super cute. That's super awesome, dude. And I love they send OG Bishop, younger Bishop. He's like, yeah, I don't want to become that villain. And it's like, oh, at first I thought they were going to say the conversation of like, right, you can't really promise that because, but now knowing what his future is, you're going to do everything you can not to be that person. But then even they're like, yeah, that sounds awesome and everything, but sadly, we need you to become that person because you need to get to the point where we come to this day. Because if you don't become that bad guy, the entire future changes. So despite the bad that came about it, that being Sarah getting kidnapped and murdered, it all worked out in the end. So we need you to play your role, so everything can work out so we can get to this point in time. So wipe his memory and send him on his way. But then Sarah and Mick had their last beer together. She's like, when we first got on that ship, if we time traveled to this point and looked at where we are, me with my wifey, you with your 48 kids, 49, about to be a grandpappy, like, who would have thought this would be where we are? But obviously it's like, but he talks about moving on to the next job, and Sarah's like, I figured that this time was going to come, but you'll always have a place on a Wave Rider, and I'm like, oh, because right, this is just as much his family, And really quickly, that is the thing. I kept being evasive about it for a particular reason. But yeah, the thing I want to say that came out before season 6 even started airing, maybe a little after, is that Dominic Purcell was leaving the show after this season. So that this would be his last season. It's probably kind of similar to like Carlos and Tom with The Flash. Or like, yeah, you're leaving, but the door's always open for you to come back for maybe small guest spots if you choose to, type of thing. I think, the door's always open in that regard, which, once just kind of makes it even sadder because it's like, right, now Sarah, Katie Lotz is the final OG member of the team left, But yeah, the reason why I didn't bring it up, why I was so evasive about it, anytime I kept bringing up something I knew that I didn't want to talk about, because if you knew that Mick was going to leave, it kind of make you go into it with the expectation of like, oh, maybe his character will die, or at the very least he'll be sending off. Like, you'll come into it knowing like, oh, there's going to be an end to it. Like, at least the ending might hit someone who might be listening to these reviews and didn't know that. They might be like, oh, they were kind of surprised, and like, oh, they're like, maybe him leaving will hit even harder because they didn't know it. Like Charlie, I didn't know that was going to be like the actress who plays Charlie's like technical like final season was going to be last season. I didn't know she was leaving the show after that. I knew that was kind of like their goodbyes for now, but I didn't realize that until someone had told me after the season was done. So it was kind of something of that vein. So that's why. Is it a stupid reason? But you know, but that's my justification of why like I handled it like that. But that's not the only thing. We also say goodbye to Constantine. I don't know if this is like. Once again, I'd heard about Dominic Purcell, not anything about Matt Ryan, who plays John Constantine. So that might not be as permanent goodbye. That might be a temporary thing. But essentially, Zari ends up like being like, you know, it's like, right, I did love you, John. And walks away, and he pops up again. I was like, at first I thought like, oh, I'm here. I can't leave this spot. I came to see you one more time. Thing. It's like, oh no, I am back to life. He's like, yeah, after my sacrifice, the fountain, you know, believed in me. It's like, no. I ended up having to sell a part of my soul to get back here, right back to where he started. After finally getting his soul back after last season and having to give it away again to be. But I think for him, it's more important. Like I think he's got a new journey ahead and other stuff that he has to do. Like maybe it's something he learned in that time frame. Maybe whether it's something him being connected to the fountain or whatever it is, the whole demon, whoever he sold, you know, his soul to. He learned that there's something out there that only he can handle. He has to be away from the legends because he can't be around them right now until I think he has to like. I think for him it's like I'm starting back at zero. All the good karma, everything all the growing I've done over the course of my time with the legends, I have to kind of start from net zero again. Or maybe the argument could be he's in both the positive and negatives. I know that's weird to say, but it's like he says it himself, like, right. She's like, you're still the bastard. And he's like, right. I am still a bastard at the end of the day. Someone can both change and not change at the same time. And so, you know, she's like, we really kind of mucked this up. You even said that we wouldn't work. And he was like, yeah, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, what we had, yeah, it sucks that it ended this way, but I would do it all over again. And Zari's like, I would too. And so he ends up giving her a key, and she's like, what's this to? He's like, you'll figure it out. And he walks away, and he's kind of got a smile of like, I guess that's going to be a big secret all on its own. Like, that's, I guess, a major setup for next season of just something. It seemed good. It didn't seem like, oh, like something to be worried about. Like, I don't know whether it's like, oh, I'm giving you like the mansion/house, whether it's something of that vein or whether it's more like it unlocks something else. It seemed like it would be something else and not necessarily anything tied to the manor, not unless it's something in the manor. But it is interesting to think, like, what will John's journey be away from the legends? And is it a permanent thing, or will he eventually pop up with the legends later on? Like I said, I haven't read up on it. So if you feel the need to, you can let me know in the comments down below, but I'm pretty sure it's probably like maybe he is walking away for now, but maybe leaving the door open for potential returns in the future. But it is kind of sad that things ended this way, but it's like, you know, it's better to have lost than to love and lost than never to have loved at all type of thing, you know? A cliche as it may be, like, it is still worthwhile, because this was a first for Zari, like, because even Bear, I was like, I've never known you to, like, fall for someone, like, anything, like, to be what it is between her and John. That was kind of a first, but, you know, if you can, you know, if that's a first, that just means that there's many potentially others out there for you type of situation. So we also never got a resolution on the whole Spooner's mom thing, Gloria, but I'm assuming like it's a thing of like, right, I don't know whether the plan is to take her mom to the future with her present day, because it's like, right, she's out there, like, you know, away from the house, but it's like, probably, I don't know if you keep her in 1925, because Spooner would probably be like, yeah, that's where I'll always know her. Granted, that's not a concern, considering they're kind of stuck in 1925, because I love the whole thing of like, right, we're all set, let's go, wow, like everything's kind of wrapped up neatly. That never happens for us. It's like, oh, you're being paranoid, babe. Title card. come back from the title card. Actually, the stinger to the season is Wave Rider comes and destroys their Wave Rider. What the hell? End of the season. So I'm like, okay, I like the fake out of like, hey, because like I said, like the Flash in season 7 of the Flash ended almost like, oh, no setup for the next season, just kind of keeping it like, oh, everything's kind of nicely tied up potentially, and not setting up necessarily anything. And it's like I thought maybe Legends was going to go down that route, but not really. I think the closest season to do that would be season 4, because every season's ended off on a cliffhanger of like setting something up. Season 4 kind of wrapped everything up, but also remember it was like the whole Barad and Zari thing, so it wasn't like a clean like, oh, everything's like completely resolved, but it's the most packaged finale we've gotten so far without a big cliffhanger to a certain extent. So it is interesting. I'm curious to see what happens. It's like I wasn't expecting that, so it's like I guess it's the thing of, a future version of themselves felt like, we have to do this because you have to go on this journey. We have to keep the timeline the same. So, because what they were doing to Bishop, it's like the same thing has to basically happen to them. They have to go on their journey now. Like I said, what that journey necessarily is, we'll have to wait and see. But now that I am curious, will Spooner still be connected to the fountain or not? Like all that stuff, like is that still a part of her, or is that gone now? Like, will she always have a connection to the fountain? Because John is obviously no longer bound to it, and the fountain's like, thank God I no longer have to be bound to you. But I'm curious what that says about Spooner. Like, was that blast like severing that connection in that moment, or not? We'll ultimately have to wait and see, get more clarity on that next season. With me saying that, obviously, Legends of Tomorrow was renewed for a 7th season, so it's definitely going to be interesting to see where next season takes us. I'm curious what the main thing is going to be. We've had our Mysteries, we've had our Demons, we've had our Encores, we've now had Aliens, so what's next? We've had our Legion of Doom, we've had our Vandal Savage, so I'm really curious to see what can we expect next season. Robots? Is it going to be something we wouldn't even think of? I'm curious to see. Like, obviously that Legends Wave Rider thing is like the main crux, but I'm like, there's got to be like a through line, like I said, like your Aliens or your Mysteries or your Encores. I'm curious to see what that ends up being, or if there's not actually going to be one of those. I'm curious, like, who's definitely, like, I guess, like, everyone's going to be sticking around more. I'm sure Astra's definitely going to be more around on the Wave Rider. Same thing for Gary. I'm curious to see what Gary's going to do more now. Like, right, are we going to have to worry about any more with his species? Because I'm sure, like, obviously him and Kayla and Mick are going to kick it as parents and figuring that whole thing out. But, like, what's Gary going to do? What about their species? Is there going to be any questions that, like, Gary's going to have to deal with in the aftermath? Because Kayla's off doing her thing, so he has to be the one responsible for that. Will that turn into an issue? I'm curious to see whether any of that comes up next season. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.